Invocation is the act of calling upon a higher power. Invocation calls upon spiritual forces in order to bring about a state of being or a specific outcome. When you invoke, you are not begging. You are aligning with a specific higher power. You do it with respect, but the same kind of respect that a student has for their teacher. A student doesn't supplicate and bow down and beg for help. They just ask for help. They ask their questions. They receive assignments. They work with their teacher. It's a team. A teacher and a student are a team. They are co-creators. And it's important that we understand the attitude necessary for a good invocation before we move forward with this idea of what invocation is and why we should use it and how we can use it. Because many people, when they invoke, are supplicants. That's not the highest attitude, because it puts you in a position of separation from that power that you're trying to become one with. Instead, when you recognize that you are of the same spiritual fabric as that which you are invoking and that you're tuning your vibration to that which you are invoking, it's closer to the truth. Think of yourself as a receiver, such as a radio receiver. All the different radio waves available to you are right here, right now. But what your receiver does is it has the ability to tune into a particular frequency and receive the broadcast. And that's, in effect, what we're doing when we're invoking. We are recognizing who we are as receivers and tuning our vibration so that we can receive. With invocation, it's not just receiving, you're tuning into a two-way communication with this force, whatever you're invoking. Every time we do a talisman, it's a type of invocation. And when we're working with the different scripts in order to write petitions, we are invoking, we are co-creating, we are working and tuning ourselves in to whichever angelic force we're wanting to invoke. But the same is true for any kind of invocation. Goddesses, gods, even God Almighty. It's harder to understand, it's harder to comprehend God Almighty as an invocation, and that's why for many of us, it's easier for us to tune into a specific deity or a specific angelic vibration because we are able to tune into a part of the so-called God Almighty that governs whatever it is that we are trying to work on. Whether it's something that we're wanting to work on within ourselves or something practical that we're wanting to achieve in our lives. So that's why in many craft traditions, ours included, we understand the law of correspondence. And the law of correspondence is that certain things correspond to other certain things. And when we can dial into certain correspondences, we are also dialing into the frequencies of the higher powers that govern those correspondences. And it helps us to become more specific in regards to what it is that we're trying to achieve. When we are too broad and too generalized in our invocations, we can't expect anything but broad and generalized results. But when we are specific and definite about our invocations, then our results can become more defined and specific as well. To bring whatever your desire is into reality through invocation, it's important to follow particular principles. Your desire that you want to bring into reality can be mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, relationship, financial, practical, aspirational. There's always a reason for invoking. Even if the reason is I want to connect to my higher power, I want to feel good. That's a specific intention. And it's important to understand why. Why do I want to invoke? What am I doing and why am I doing it? Those are the two questions to ask before any magical operation. What am I doing and why am I doing it? What am I doing? I'm invoking. Why am I invoking? Because I want this, and this. And that helps you to understand, am I invoking the right force? In so many systems of magic, there are clear delineations between deities. Just like in angel magic or most planetary magic, you know if I want to work on a specific area of my life, there's a specific energy that rules that and governs that. It makes it more efficient rather than just calling upon spirit or calling upon God or calling upon the goddess and not having any Akashic definition as to what it is that you're calling upon and why. It can be extremely powerful to understand the different powers that you're working with before you start invoking them so that you can get what you want. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing generalized invocations. You can, and sometimes that's the best thing to do, especially if you're in a position in your life where you just don't have the wherewithal to study and to understand, but you need help right away. Yeah, call upon Shekinah, call upon the Holy Spirit, call upon God, call upon the goddess, whatever you respond to. Invoke it and let them work it out. There's absolutely a place for that. But as you become more advanced, it's easier for you to get what you want if you understand what force you're invoking and why you're invoking it. In order to invoke, we need to follow some principles. The first principle is called the law of alignment. And the law of alignment is what we were talking about before, where you're tuning in your frequency. And this is about getting your thoughts and your feelings and your intentions to match the force that you're invoking and making sure that the force that you're invoking matches what you desire. You're pulling everything together and aligning with that frequency. And just like with a radio dial, the more in the center of the signal you can dial it, the clearer is your signal. So the clearer you are as to why you're calling upon this power and getting your thoughts and your feelings and your intentions aligned with that power, the better. When you do that, when you are fully aligned, what you're creating is a direct path for this power to enter and work through you. It's the idea of helping the power to help you. The power wants you to be as clear as possible, to do your part. The second principle that's important with invocation is called the power of command. Command means what your voice carries is powerful, whether that's your internal voice or your physical voice. Your voice is a representation of your will. And what you say is your command. Things work at your command. How you command is how things will be. Frequently, that's why things don't work out for many people. They're constantly commanding them not to. If you listen to your speech and the things that you just chit-chat about with people and things that you complain and moan and groan about, it's amazing that life isn't worse, isn't it? When we understand the power of command. And as we use our voices both internally, our internal voice, and externally in a more conscious manner, we understand that the power of command is vital. And so in our invocations, the way that we use our voice, like I said, either internally or externally, is important. And that we are commanding that we be one with this higher power. And the higher power responds to that. The higher power loves you to command. You're not bossing it around. You're not being disrespectful by commanding. For instance, we talk about the law of restitution. I call upon the law of restitution. That's an invocation. That's a command. I call upon the divine law of restitution that everything that was taken from me in this situation is now returned or its equivalent. That's an invocation right there through the law of command. I call upon the Archangel Michael to enter into my awareness in order for me to be, do, or have ... Sometimes we do it as a formal invocation like that. Sometimes it's a written invocation, which is still using your voice. It's your inner voice. Sometimes that inner voice is activated through the creation of a talisman. There are many different ways to use the law of command. It's always a good idea, no matter what you're doing in your spell, to include some sort of verbalized command. Now, if you're not in a position where you can do that, you can do an internally verbalized command where you hear yourself speak it. That can be just as effective. And then the third principle is the role of imagination. And most of us with imagination, that means visualization, meaning making a picture. But not everybody is oriented toward making visual pictures. But you know what your ability to imagine is. If you listen to a fairy tale or you read a fairy tale, there's so many images that are always included in those fairy tales. They're wonderful for this. Somehow you are recreating, you are imagining the scene as it's being spoken to you or as you're reading it on some level or another. Whatever that is, that's imagination for you. And so the ability to imagine what you want, imagine that you're one with this power, imagine that you are connecting with this higher power and that you and this higher power are co-creating a solution that you desire. In magic, making it up is real. A lot of times people say, oh, they're just making that up. Well, yeah, we are. That's what magic is, making stuff up. As you make it up, you are creating it as reality. You are creating a thought form. You are creating in the invisible plane. So yes, it's making it up. And you want to make it up. You want to imagine what you want, not what you don't want. So you use your imaginative faculties along with the power of command and that law of alignment as a threefold whammy to get that invocation happening. Through those three principles of invocation, you are creating quite the dynamo of a magical operation. It's easiest for most of us to put these three principles of invocation into practice through some sort of ritual. It's usually the easiest way to do it. It's not absolutely necessary, but it is usually the easiest way. And even if you, quote, don't use a ritual and you do it all in your mind, it's still a ritual. It's just an internal ritual. You don't have to be very complicated in your ritual gestures, and you can internalize all of them if you need to, if you can't do a physical ritual for whatever reason. But it is still important to ritualize what it is that you're doing. If you're doing a ritual in a room, it's a good idea first to tidy up the room so that you're not being distracted. Messes tend to cause tension and anxiety. Do your best to have order in your space. The first thing before any ritual is to ground and center. Now, in a witch's primer, we have a grounding and centering exercise, and then what's called an orb of light exercise. And those are two great things to do before any ritual. But if you're not interested in anything quite that specific, just relaxing your body, relaxing your mind is what you need to do, making sure that all excess energy is grounded and drained away, and that you are linking up to a higher energy power. We often use roots extending from the base of the spine into the earth so that we're not feeling like we're depleting our own energy, but we are connected to an infinite amount of energy. Relaxing your body, relaxing your mind, lowering your mental shield. And then you cleanse the space. Now, if you've taken a witch's primer, we show you how to make a whole magic circle. And the way that we cleanse the space for a magic circle is first with salt and water, and then with fire and air or incense. Or you can also use a spray perfume that is also fire and air. People say, well, how is that fire? It's because the act of pressing the button, that's your fire. But you could also have a candle burning or walk around with a candle if you really want a fiery representation. Your ritual can have you cleansing just by visualizing a bright light permeating the room. And as you do that, you can use your power of command. The bright light of spirit is now permeating this room and cleansing it. And even if you're doing your fire, water, salt, and air, you usually use the law of command, as we describe in A Witch's Primer. Fire and air, this charge I lay, no evil in thy presence stay. Fire and air, this charge I give, no evil in thy presence live. It's a very old-fashioned way of doing it, but it's just a command. You're commanding the incense to be more than just smoke. It's now a magical implement that is cleansing the vibration of your room. Same thing with salt and water. Salt and water by casting thee, no spell nor unknown purpose be, except in true accord with me, as I will, so mote it be. Those are the kinds of chants we teach you at A Witch's Primer. But you don't have to do anything that witchy if you don't want to. You can just use your normal conversational English. As I cast the salt and water, so is the space cleansed. just using your power of command and your power of imagination, where you see light emanating from the salt and water, emanating from the incense smoke, or just the light if you're not using those tools. If you're just using the white light or the electric blue witch light is another one that we use. Just permeating the space and commanding it to cleanse. If you want more protection, you can actually erect a circle. That's absolutely fine. It's not necessary, but you can. It's one way to really focus the energy, to make sure that your law of alignment is very, very specific, so that when you cast that circle, you are saying anything that's not exactly what I call will not be a part of this ritual. Only what I call upon is going to be part of this ritual. I do like that orb of light exercise, though, because it does keep you feeling like you are in a sacred space all the time. However you've decided to prepare your space, whether it's very casually or very formally, once your space has been cleansed and prepared, then you can perform the invocation. And you can do it verbally and or through ritual gestures such as making talismans, etc. But even if you're only doing ritual gestures and talismans and poppets or whatever it is that you're doing, I still recommend that you speak aloud, if possible, your intention and your alignment with whatever power you're calling upon. After you've finished with your invocation, including whatever ritual gestures are necessary for your spell, and there are so many different ways to go as part of this invocation, as complicated or as simple as you decide. But once you're done, it's important to express gratitude. Not thank you for being here, I'm so dependent on you and you're so much better than I am. Not that kind of gratitude. Gratitude that you have this relationship with this power. Gratitude that whatever you're working on is already finished on the astral, and so it's just a matter of time before it becomes true in the physical realm. So being grateful that it's already here, being grateful for another wonderful experience with this power, and just finding every reason to be happy and grateful for whatever it is that you've just done. That gratitude speeds up your results. It heightens the vibration of your aura, and it literally makes your life better. Make sure that gratitude is a very integral part of every invocational experience you have. It seals the deal. It seals the ritual. It seals the healing. It seals the spell, whatever you've been working on, and shifts you to unlimited abundance in your mind rather than lack. Gratitude is very, very powerful. Finally, you must release your attachment to the outcome. This is where that divine law of indifference comes in. It's important to practice indifference after you've finished any kind of invocation, any kind of magic, releasing yourself from the outcome. Your release of it makes you magnetic to it. The less you can release it, the less magnetic you are to it. And you can remind yourself through the law of command, release is magnetic. Release is magnetic. And when you tell yourself that release is magnetic, let go of any attachment to this thing. Finding a way to want what you want with every fiber of your being during the ritual, and then getting to the point where you don't even care about it anymore because it's so far out of your mind. It can sound daunting to be able to have those two extremes, but in practice, it's actually quite simple, and you'll notice that you can do it. And just remind yourself, release is magnetic. You can call upon that higher power to help you release. You can put it in the hands of that higher power and know that they're handling it so you don't have to think about it. And the less you can think about it and the less you can attach yourself to needing this to happen, needing this to turn out in any specific way, the faster you're going to have your results. And they will always be better than what you imagined. They will always be better than what you imagined. That's the great thing of having this co-creative relationship with a higher power. The teacher will always correct your paper. And when you can do everything in your power and then give it to that higher power for safekeeping, the higher power is always going to make it better, always going to do things that you couldn't understand how to do. is always going to be there for you in ways that you were not able to be there for yourself, and to do for you what you couldn't do for yourself. And that's the whole reason for invocation. If you already knew how to have everything work out in a beautiful way, you wouldn't need an invocation. When you invoke, recognize that you're calling upon a power that has access to wisdom, power, and knowledge that you don't have, and that you can trust that this power is going to deliver the results that you're working on in a way that's so much better than you could have done for yourself. And expect that. Expect it. You expect it, but you don't direct it. You expect the results, but you don't direct the results. You just let them happen. And you're expecting it to such a degree that you forget about it. It's so obvious to you that this is going to manifest in a perfect way that you don't even think about it anymore. That's how certain you are. To manifest anything through magic, it's important to understand the fundamental laws of magical manifestation. 3 of the Hermetic principles are in action here more than any. That's the law of vibration, the law of correspondence, and the law of cause and effect. So the law of vibration states that everything has a unique energy frequency, and like frequencies attract each other. So the universe naturally responds to the energy that you tune into and that you put out. So a clear and consistent personal vibration is key. You put into the invocation and into the ritual what you want to get back. You dial your vibration exactly to what you want. The law of correspondence is stated as above, so below, as within, so without. And this means that your outer world is a direct reflection of your inner world, your deep mind. And to change that external reality, we must first change our deep mind. And when we call upon a higher power, we give them access to the deep mind so they can go in and tweak it. They can go in and tweak it with us. It's not instead of us. They're not just doing it for us while we go eat bonbons, but they're helping us to do it in a way that we weren't capable of doing all on our own. And then finally, the law of cause and effect states that every thought, word, and action creates a specific outcome. So when you have a goal, when you have a desire, and you cast a spell for that desire, you're creating a very powerful cause, and the universe responds precisely to the energy that you cast in your spell. So this is another great reason for working with this higher power that's tuned into what you want, because they can help you cast a thought form that's even more powerful and focused than you might be able to come up with on your own. As you progress in working with the power of invocation, you will face certain obstacles. Usually those are doubt and fear. And doubt and fear and lack of faith disrupt the focus and block your energy. And so to overcome this, it's important to build strong self-esteem and a strong relationship with the power that you're invoking, and that you can lean on their vibration when you don't feel strong enough yourself. You can lean on their vibration when you don't have the faith in yourself yet. And they can help you to build that faith without you losing out on whatever it is that you're working on. You are leaning on a power that doesn't doubt, that doesn't lack faith. One of the other pitfalls that can come into play, which we've already discussed briefly, is when we are attaching ourselves to a specific outcome. That very frequently is the way that people kill their thought forms and kill their spells. They hold so tightly onto a thought of a rigid result or rigid outcome. And what that does is it squeezes the life out of their spell. So instead, we have to learn how to let go and forget about it and trust that whatever happens is going to be better than anything that we could come up with. What's required to build that trust and that faith, which we've talked about many, many times, is learning how to work within our current magical sphere of influence. And when you're working within your current magical sphere of influence and you're working through the power of invocation, your sphere of influence can expand much more rapidly, as we've stated, because you can lean on the faith of this higher power when you haven't yet built that much faith in yourself yet. When you master invocation, you start reaching another goal that you may not have understood that you actually had. You stop performing invocations as separate rituals, and you become an invocational instrument. You live life invocationally. That's not to say that you don't still want to do the rituals and you don't still want to do the talismans and do the spells and all of that. But as you become more used to invoking these powers and these forces that you're working with, you recognize that it doesn't take as much ritual after a while. It doesn't take as much because you are becoming one with these powers, and that invocation is becoming more of a permanent process for you. This transforms your craft into a permanent state of being, a magical state of being that is permanent. Every thought, word, and action starts to align with divine truth because you've learned how to stop using your words in an unconscious way, how to stop using your imagination in an unconscious way. And so now you're becoming closer to the power that you've been invoking. You're becoming more like it. You're growing spiritually. And then you start to understand the phrase in the Psalms, ye are gods. You're actually becoming that which you've been invoking. And that's exactly what the universe wants for you, by the way. You're not being sacrilegious or anything. You're not being arrogant. It's just the way things work. The more you invoke, the more you become that which you invoke. And over time, you become a super being. Magical invocation is more than just a tool. It's a way of life dedicated to shaping reality by mastering your mind, your heart, and your will, and aligning with a higher power that is like you and wants to make you become more like it. It's a wonderful method of spiritual growth and magical mastery. Aleister Crowley used to say that you should invoke constantly. Invoke, invoke, invoke. And so the more you invoke, the easier those invocations become, and the more your life becomes an invocation. Let your words, your thoughts, and your actions become the force that transforms your world and the world around you. That's the power of invocation. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.